Greetings, peace, and power from the Afro-Descendant Institute of Human Rights, from the Afro-Descendant Nation Confederated. Greetings to our family of tribes, our family of peoples. Power to all our peoples. Power to all of our peoples. We greet you this morning to talk about two roads, to talk about comparative politics. Politics is who gets what. So we're going to talk about comparative politics and how we are approaching our side of that comparative politic approach. Our political approach is self-determination. Our political approach is independence, self-determination, national tribalism. This is a new concept for many, that we are a tribe. The Afro-descendants in America are one big tribe. We have our own attributes, our own language, our own circumstance. We are our own people by circumstance, by segregation, by apartheid, and we look forward to becoming self-determining down the process of the road to self-determination. Today is going to be a power-packed information on how we rise to an astronomical level of achievement from where we're at now. Over this last month, we had a very good example of self-determination in the city of Detroit, Michigan. I was so happy to join my fellow comrade, my fellow self-determinists, Ramzu Yunus, Daniel Guthridge, Django. There are 25 core volunteers in Detroit, Michigan. There are hundreds of people that have come in as volunteers to move their people from a burnt out, unestablished, fragile infrastructure where the houses are abandoned, crime, the other attributes of big city poverty, to now take over their own politics. I was so happy as the chief facilitator to witness that group of people fighting so well. They have gathered over 100,000 votes. The mayor of the city only has 72,000. We have 100,000 plus votes, and the votes are coming in to move the power to a transitionary power. This is an example of how mighty we are if we only knew. The only thing that we need to do is to stand up and recognize ourselves for who we are. And who we are in the international world is we are Afro-descendants. That is a name that was given, not given, but agreed upon by all the Afro-descendants in the Western Hemisphere, in Uruguay. This connotation as Afro-descendants allows us to be self-determining. It's a different path than civil rights and integration. Civil rights and integration is another path. It's a path of dependence. It's a path of the democratic, depending on the whims of the Democratic and Republican white majority. Anytime that a minority, especially a despised minority, seeks to integrate into a hostile white majority, you get the results that we have gotten here in the United States. A disastrous results where we have been excluded from wealth, locked into pockets of poverty. We've been excluded from education to the extreme that our children are reading way below their level. They can't catch up in the wealth gap because they're uneducated. So the other path, self-determination, especially Afro-descendant indigenous self-determination, allows us to have control over the schools. This allows, so we're looking forward in Detroit to take over a $400 million school system, broken school system that did not educate. Let me look at those figures. Let us look at those figures again. The city budget in Detroit, because This path, the self-determining path, is a path to wealth and a path to riches. The integration path, as we've seen over the last 150 years, is a path to poverty, other exclusions, to begging the other man for more food stamps or more reparations, which is government-controlled reparations, and we'll talk about that. That's that path. The path that we're on is the path to enormous wealth. It is not just saying power to the people. That was the infancy of self-determination. The nationalists that came before us, Malcolm X, Martin Delany, they brought us on the path of self-determination because they realized that our endeavors with the white hostile majority would get us no fruit. So we are now at the precipice. We're at the beginning of true political power. True political power in Detroit means something totally different than political power under the integrationist system, which is a no-power system. In that political scheme in Detroit, they evicted over 100,000 people from their houses last summer. They allowed the ravaging of Detroit to the extent that it is a decrepit infrastructure. That's the power of leaving our power in the hands of someone else. Self-determination, on the other end, has allowed us now to be in control. We're in the position to be in control of a $2 billion a year budget. This is an extreme difference from integration and this mask of being a member of the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. That's another path. This path allows us to be able to grasp that wealth, our proportionate share of that wealth. In Detroit and in many metropolises over the United States, 1,200 to be exact, we are the majority. It behooves us to grab the power, the industrial power, the economic power, the power over the police, the power over schools, the power over all government occupations. This will increase our net worth tremendously to the extent that we become the 12th wealthiest people in the world. On the other hand, integration, being a membership of a hostile Democratic Party or Republican Party is a seal of our doom to a continued existence of poverty and neglect, no matter what they say. The power of self-determination, democratic self-determination, which is what we're doing in Detroit, allows us to be in control of that budget so that we can now house the people. My comrade, Ramsey Eunice, and the Detroit self-determinists are now in a position, and we're going to help them in that position to transition from where we're at now of holding these votes to implementing the transition needed to accede to power. So there's two paths: the path to self-determination in all of our affairs, reparations, and all of our affairs, control over our institution, all of our affairs, the path to self-determination. This is not a radical path. It is an intelligent path. This is a path that all self-interested groups in the United States have done and are doing. The farmers are self-interested. They're practicing self-determination. The whites are self-interested. They're practicing white nationalism, which is self-determination. This is what they practice. All politics in America are racial identity politics, and always have been. This is the nature of the United States. It was born out of this oppression, this concept of oppressing the people and the indigenous people and all the peoples, non-white peoples. This was and is an apartheid nation. To integrate into apartheid nation has yielded us very little results, to the extent that we are now moving toward a certain doom, to a zero-sum equity position. Right now, our net worth is $8 in Boston, probably zero in Chicago, and all of the areas, because of severe unemployment, severe educational system, severe police state oppression. That is integration. That is what you call, or we call, and some call, traditional politics in America. We have chosen another path, a path to self-determination that will allow our people to rise up, our children to rise up and be of their true value. I'm going to show you several videos, some by my colleagues, Ramsey Yunus in Detroit, when he talks about self-determination. Big difference. In the inter-American system, we are in the inter-American system, which means that we are in the Western Hemisphere of other Afro-descendants, 200 million to be exact. 200 million, over 200 million Afro-descendants in our area that have independent power, the power over their land, the power over their resources. And they have gained this power since 2000. The blinders have been put on our eyes by our politicians and by our professors, who either don't know this, don't care to share this with us, or have intentionally hid the fact that we now are subjects of international law. This is not going to be an easy fight, but it's going to be a worthwhile fight as we move toward this transitionary period. We are now in phase 2 in Detroit because we have democratic power on paper. We have democratic consent, which means everything. So now the implementation of that, so that we to control over all of the institutions and that $2 billion budget. $2 billion are now at the hands of the Afro-descendant people in Detroit. $2 billion. Nationalism is, do not let anyone tell you anything else, it is an economic reparations. Reparations is not what they say, especially those organizations who follow this integrationist line, who want to rely on Congress to define reparations for them and to dole out reparations for them. Not going to happen. They simply don't have the votes. Let's talk about mathematics, because we feel, self-determinists feel, that we have found a quantitative way to obtain freedom in our majority populated states, in our majority populated areas, in our majority populated cities, by simply voting and giving consent to a different form of government, which is entirely legal under the American system, which is entirely legal under the UN human rights system. Democracy, and this is what we're doing under self-determination. We are democratically choosing to form a different understanding, a different political configuration. This is perfectly legal. In fact, this is the most intelligent thing that we can do, other than integrationist ideas of relying and voting for a Democrat to control our areas, to vote for a Republican to control our areas. The Democrats are government-controlled opposition. Let me repeat that. The Democrats are government-controlled opposition, all of them, even the Congressional Black Caucus. In fact, they're the ones that are controlling us. We're the opposition. They're government control because they don't work for us. We don't dictate their votes and how they should treat us economically. And they have very little or no power because they're working out of an integrationist side politics in which the minority always loses. The minority always loses in a majority populated system. In the self-determining system, we become the majority. We are the majority tribe. We dictate politics with our councils that we establish. We're going to establish a council, a temporary interim government during this transitionary period in Detroit. And we just don't want to make it Detroit. Why? Because right now, I and others are chomping at the bits to bring this case, our case of self-determination of Afro-descendants, to the international courts and to our communities. Right now, we have over 100,000 citizens because of the brave work of the brothers and sisters in Detroit. And just that 100,000 citizens has allowed us to become the 5th largest tribe in the United States. The Navajo is the largest tribe. They have 385,000. We have 46 million. And if we had 46 million Confederates, we would have a new day in America. We would be the 12th wealthiest people in the entire world. Our communities that are devastated now would look like Wakanda. Our schools would be technicalized to have computers for all of our kids, computers that they can take home. We have teachers that would nurture them. We could take over the police department and police our communities under the international standards of policing in a democratic state, which is totally different from where we're being policed now. We're being policed as military victims in a military occupation because we are under occupation. We have still not moved out of colonial occupation. Let me explain. Colonial occupation are those people who came from England, settled in the United States, and became the United States, though they're still colonialists. They are called belligerent occupiers. Indigenous people, who we have ascended to because of our ancient roots and because of the fact that our tribal ties were destroyed and we came up in America over these last 400 or 500 years. That mesh concept has allowed us to become Afro-descendants with the ability to have superior rights in the areas that we occupy than the belligerent occupiers. We have not learned political science well. In April, I'm going to hold a conference in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to invite all the political science professors. I'm going to invite all the American studies professors. I'm going to invite all of the journalists. I'm going to invite all of them to understand these two levels of these two different concepts and why we have chosen the political path of self-determination and tribal nationalism as Afro-descendants. I'm going to show you a clip of my comrade, of my colleague, a brother that I have much love for his dedication, for his willpower, because this man right here started this battle with just a few soldiers and has now amassed over 100,000 votes out of sheer will and the sheer will and the power of the people. This young man has, and I'm going to show you several clips in one right after the other, because the first one is Ramsey Yunus in an interview on one of our brother's blog shows. And he explains why they did what they did in Detroit. Then I'm going to give you another clip to show you that this process, self-determination, national tribalism, has obtained recognition worldwide. And we have obtained recognition from Venezuela, and other African countries are waiting now to confederate with us. I'm in contact with the 6th region of the Afro diaspora. The concept of self-determination allows us to connect with all of our other brothers and sisters who are also self-determined people and self-determined nations. Integration does not. We come in as minority citizens, simple minority citizens in the United States that have no more rights and privileges than a refugee who just came here. This is the state of Negroism, civil rightsism, that many of our political people who are supposed to be politicians, our political science professors, our American history professors, our American studies professors have a quest to. It is a corrupt and dead-end pursuit. So we are solidly on the path to self-determination. I'm going to show you a clip by my brother, Ramsey Eunice. I'm going to
Peace and Black Power family. This is your Harlem educator, author, and activist, the Black Liberation Coach, your brother Ajay Taimba, filming live on location at wonderful village of Harlem. And today I am joined by a very special guest, a wonderful, solid, dedicated, good brother by the name of, pardon me, Ramzu, brother Ramzu in the building.
Yes, sir.
And brother, first of all, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. And how are you feeling today, good brother?
I'm fantastic. We're in a nice time to be living in. I'm great.
Excellent. Now, I want to begin by reading for the family our good brother's bio so that you know more about our brother. I think that's always important to know who's coming before us, you know? So, Brother Ramzu Eunice was born and raised in the state of North Carolina. Hold on, family. I'm going to put on earplugs. I want to make sure that there's no distortion.
Yes, sir.
Bear with us, family. We don't let the technology stop. We use it, don't let it use us. All right. Can you hear me, Brother Ramzu?
I can hear you.
All right. So, Brother Ramzu Eunice was born and raised in the state of North Carolina. After troubling experiences as an impoverished youth and teenager, which ended in over 3 years of incarceration, he decided to dedicate his life to fight for justice and empowerment for the oppressed Black population in the United States. At the age of 22, Brother Ramzu became dissatisfied with the leadership of the Black community because they were not making any progress. He decided to relocate to Africa, wherein he lived for 9 years and engaged in a number of businesses, including petroleum products, import, and distribution. After meeting and witnessing the leadership of great revolutionaries like the late President Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe and President Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, Brother Ramzu decided to return to the United States to do what no other Black leader there has done. He decided to initiate a Black independence movement in which the Black population exercises their human right to self-determination and a constitutional right to abolish the government, then govern themselves on the territory upon which they already occupy as a majority. Brother Ramzu has formed an entity of the residents called the People, Al Umma, and has organized 2 massive votes in Detroit, Michigan, that suffered unlawful, violent government crackdown. Brother Ramzu has been beaten and arrested by police and detained numerous times by federal officers around the United States and internationally, as the United States government seeks to silence him and suppress the independence movement he represents. Brother Ramzu has held a press conference in which a Declaration of Independence was read. He claims that lawfully, the people, we, have a right to declare as such, since the government terroristically refuses to allow its citizens to peacefully gather and vote according to international and local constitutional law. Brothers and sisters, please give a black hand and an attentive ear and an open mind to our good brother, Brother Ramzu Yunus. Thank you again, good brother.
Thank you. Thank you. The honor is mine, at your service.
Pleasure to have you on the platform, good brother. You know, at Black Liberation University, we try to bring the heavyweights, man. We don't want to waste our people's time with nobody who ain't no one-hitter quitter, a knockout artist, the champ.
Sure.
And you are in that pantheon of champs that we bring on this show, brother. So blessings to you, man, for all the hard work that you do on our behalf. You know, nothing goes unnoticed and unrewarded. Family, I do want to give a quick reminder, 2 quick announcements before we begin. Number 1, family, right now we're on Facebook Live, but tomorrow this will be on Black Liberation University on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, family. We kicking that nation building Black liberation information. Also, family, we want to remind you that we have a very important conference coming up, and that is the 3rd Annual Building Power Summit, September 19th to September 22nd in Coldwater, Mississippi. You got the information will be scrolling across the bottom of the screen for the entirety of the show. Get that information, family. Go to the website, register, because this is not just we're running our mouth trying to get a swerve on, just trying to sell products, family. We're trying to actually build coalition, raise capacity, and participate meaningfully in the movement to secure a sovereign Black nation, much like the work our good brother Arzu is doing. Now, having said that, let us go to our good brother and let's get it in. Brother, I have a few questions here. First of all, one of the things that we ask everybody who comes on the show is, because we realize that people have different paths or entry ramps to consciousness. So we want to know, how did you begin on the path of Black liberation consciousness?
Well, it's the all too familiar route that I went. It was a route through I call it the Malcolm X route. It was going to jail, going to prison. You know, I was in jail and decided that, look, I know I'm bigger than jail or bigger than prison. You know, something else I have to do with my life. And so I just started searching. I started reading books on various religions, from Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, everywhere. Of course, I started reading the Bible when I first got locked up, but just started searching. Then I ran across the teachings of Islam and accepted that, and, you know, delved into that, became Muslim. But of course, being a Muslim and being conscious is more than just the religious practice. We began just studying everything, Black history, about all our leaders, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and so forth and so on. You know, I just started devouring books, actually. That I was known for that in prison. I was known for just lifting weights and reading books. That's all I did. You know, so that's how I came into my conscience in prison. The all too familiar route, but, you know, it was effective.
Yes, sir. Well, brother, we got here different ways, different vehicles, different paths, but the important thing is that we here, man. That's the important thing.
Yes, sir.
Now, also, we know by your work, your activities, I know that I was introduced to you through a brother I've known for 30 plus years, Brother Ishmael Bey. So I know automatically that nationhood is important to you. If you could just share with us, why is this concept or this reality of Black nationhood important to you? And to you, what does that mean when we say sovereignty or Black nation?
Well, as the saying goes, you know, history is, you know, the best reward for research. you'll find a lot throughout history. You find a lot of answers to everything. You find out all the answers. You just study history to current problems. And I just knew through studying history that, look, nationhood is the answer to all problems that all people have suffered throughout history. Whether it be the biblical history of the Israelites, how were they going to get from under oppression of the Egyptians, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
By becoming a nation, becoming their own nation. And if we go outside of the Bible to just history in general, every nation on earth that we know, whether it be nations in Africa, how are they going to get out from being oppressed, come from under colonialism? How are the Cubans, the Indians, the Chinese, whoever it may be, all people's solution was nationhood. We come here to the founding fathers of America. How are they going to get from under colonialism and ill treatment from under tyranny? Nationhood. You got to become your own nation and give yourself justice. You'd be crazy to think a nation of snakes is going to give mice subjects within that nation some justice. No, them mice will have to become a nation of their own. That's in every kingdom, whether it be plant kingdom, animal kingdom, they have their own nation. They're their own culture. They enjoy their own benefits to themselves. Nobody else going to benefit them and care for them like they can themselves. They will all only be oppressed and mistreated by others. So you can find that in everything in existence. That's nature. So that's the only solution to us. I saw that just by viewing history and now seeing our situation. Like, man, what are we doing wrong in America? Why are we oppressed? And we didn't know because we've been so far removed from nationhood that that wasn't our first choice. Of course, if you would have asked the first captives that came here as slaves, what would their solution be? They're like, go back to my country, go back to my nation. But then as we linger on year after year, decade after decade, century after century, we lost contact with being a nation, governing ourselves. So we don't even think about that. We just think about how can we just make life better on the plantation called America. But studying that and being in other countries where people have gained their nationhood, I say, look, that's the only solution. Matter of fact, that's the only solution that ever worked for anybody in history. That's the only rational solution and option that people take throughout the world. That's the first solution that international law gives you, the right to self-determination, because these nations know that first thing you should know is that, look, you have a right to govern yourself, to be your own nation, so that you can never be under tyranny. You can never have your human rights or rights, God-given rights, violated by others when you don't have to. You have a choice to govern yourself within your own nation. So that was an obvious, choice for me through general study and observation. Nationhood.
Yes, sir. Now, let me ask you, in this work you're doing, because we're involved actually in the same work in slightly different ways, but toward the same destination. I've come across Black coons and Negroes who will actually fight to the death around this issue and say, no, brother, integration is the way. Assimilation is the way. We're supposed to be part of this big American melting pot. How do you respond to that?
I mean, I give an understanding to them for having that view, but that's all we've known. Like I said, we're far removed from even thinking about nationhood. And ever since our struggle of people struggling against the oppression we've been suffering here, there's always been two camps. There's always been the camps that wanted, like Martin Delany in the 1800s, that wanted nationhood, and they felt that nationhood, governing ourselves, was the only solution. Then you had the camp on the opposite side thinking, no, we'll make this situation that we're in better. Those are always two opposing views. But you always say history will, as Castro said in his case when he went to prison, history will absolve me. So history has absolved those who thought that having our own nation was the only way, because now we have proven that is the only way. Look at the situation we're in now. The integration has become a nightmare. We're no better off now than we've been 100 or 200 years ago. And that's proven through social sciences and their surveys and studies of our current condition. So those who had the viewpoint of, no, we can make this situation better, they lost. So why will groups and new organizations continue to perpetuate that point of view when they know it's a losing battle? We've lost. Every nation on the earth has lost at that battle. The founding fathers of America lost at that battle. against their own white counterparts. So why do we as black people think we're going to win that battle against a completely opposite people? We'll never win that battle. So to those people, I say that I'd say, look, I understand you, but please study history.
We thank you, my brother Ramzu. We are on this path. We are on two different paths. We're on the integrationist path. Those who think that they could succeed in a hostile system, and this path of self-determination. This path of self-determination, economically, politically, psychologically, and for our future generation, is far superior than the integrationist path. Let's look at the numbers. In Chicago, the city budget is around $8 billion. And the communities in Chicago in which I'm from look devastated, crime-ridden, very high unemployment rate, not the 6% average, 4% average, but 75% unemployed. Our youth, 22 to 24, 75 to 70%, 77% unemployed with no outlets for this energy. Undereducated and without outlets always result in criminality. We can do better. We can do better, and we're going to do better, and we are doing better in Detroit, Michigan. We have now been recognized by other states. Let me show you what the country of Afro-descendants in Venezuela thinks about Brother Ramzu Yunus and our nation and our confederation as Afro-descendants.
Juan Bautista Vidó, nacido en la isla de Santa Lucía. Hay un desconocimiento de nuestra hermandad con África y de nuestro origen africano, como ahorita. En Estados Unidos hay una gran población de origen africano. Hay un movimiento llamado Black People, gente negra, que pretende declarar la independencia en Estados Unidos de la población de origen africano. Y el próximo 17 de septiembre va a ser un pronunciamiento en Washington y en Detroit, que dirige Ramzu Yunus. O sea, hay una situación de cambio que no la percibimos en la cotidianidad, pero que va transformando toda esta dinámica.
We have taken over Detroit. We're in the processes now. We're in the transition. In any of your cities in which you want to choose the path of self-determination, I, as the chief facilitator of the Afro-Descendant Nation Confederated, we will assist you with our international lawyers. We will assist you with our UN human rights defenders. We will bring this case, and we are waiting to bring this case. Detroit has stood up. We want you to stand up in your cities. Baltimore, listen to us. New York, listen to this movement. DC, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Newark, listen to this. Birmingham, you do not have a chance on the path to integration, but you do have a wonderful possibility when you take that city budget, those state and federal funds, because we have configured it where we don't lose a thing, where we gain control over billions of dollars and our institutions. We have a pathway to dual citizenship that's unprecedented in the Americas. We are now in the inter-American system the subject of international law. When I leave from you today, I will be discussing the future on this path with the African Union. When I leave from you today, from this conversation in which I must be at with you, my family, my brothers, my comrades, my in arms, and as a member of the oppressed, I must be with you. But as I leave you today, I will be conferring with the African Union for your progress so that you and your families and our families do not have to suffer in Chicago, in Detroit, in Baltimore, in Newark, in Pittsburgh, in Jacksonville, in Miami, in Birmingham, in Oakland, in Los Angeles. We can bring it into this by your consent for Confederation. This is how you start. On our website, there are forms where you can declare your independence. Do that right now. Give us the power to get you power. Give us the power to get you power in Chicago, in New York, in Harlem, in Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia, in Birmingham, Alabama, in Atlanta, in Oakland, California. Give us the power to give to you. We will help you put down electoral apparatuses. That's what we do. We obtain consent of the people, which is power. That's true power to the people. After that, now we can grab the city budget. We can grab and continue with our state and federal funding, but now it goes directly to us. This is a better configuration than being a member of the Democratic Party or Republican Party. Yes, we want to get rid of Trump. Yes, we stand for that, but we stand for ourselves as well. So there's 2 votes that you must take. 2 votes. The first one is for yourself. Vote Afro-Confederation, Nationhood, and Independence and Self-Determination today on our sites. Go to adconfederation.com. That's adconfederation.com. Go to AD or either adihr.us. Confederate today. We're changing our websites today to make notice of this great movement in Detroit and our acquisition of 100,000 citizens. We are 106,000 citizens strong, but we could be the largest nation, indigenous nation in the United States, and the most powerful. Or we can acquiesce to more oppression as being just a simple minority under their configuration, under the configuration of Congress, under the configuration of the Democratic Party, who are mouthing reparations, but cannot overcome their customary racism to give us, and they can't give us, we have to take. We have to accede to our right to self-determination. We have the power in our own hands. It would be different if we didn't have the power, but we have the power. We want you to rise up, you mighty people, like Brother Ramzu and Brother Daniel and Brother Django did in Detroit, and with the hundreds of volunteers in Detroit that have gotten us we're on the precipice of power in Detroit. We're going to show you this fine example. We're not talking. This is not about talking. This is about action. Your first action, declare your independence. This will give you a dual citizenship. You're not going to lose anything. You're going to gain power. This will give you dual citizenship. Declare your citizenship in the Afro-Descendant Confederation. This won't lose anything. This gives you the right to sit in seats and in unity with all the other tribes that have confederated with us, all the indigenous, Afro-indigenous tribes, all the over 100 organizations that have confederated and are now on this path to self-determination. There's 2 paths. There's the path of foolishness and oppression that we have been following as if we knew about politics by voting every 4 years for someone else. It's not politics. That is a exercise in confusion. That's a confusion. We are confused about politics. Anyone that looks at these 2 choices are confused. This path to self-determination allows us to reconfigure politics so that it's advantageous to us. our wealth. The power in Detroit, when it shifts, the $2 billion would be distributed among the people in the form of housing. And they give thousands of houses away. How can you get thousands of houses away? That's the best way to build up situations like Detroit. In the United States, the colonialists were faced with vast land expansion. How did they build America up? They gave land grants to white immigrants. They gave land grants to those immigrants who came, free land. In order to build up Detroit, we're going to give away free housing to our people. 100,000 was evicted over last summer. We're going to give those people houses. We have the power. We have the power to do that. So we have taken registrations from those people who are homeless, who are marginally homeless, living in someone else's house, and are small apartments with huge families that now want a new lease on life. We can do that because we have the power, of government. So we have power over housing in our areas. We can do what we will with that power. We will bring back neighborhoods and revitalize neighborhoods and put in schools. The schools are worth $400 million in state and federal funds that will come directly to us because indigenous Afro-Descendant people have the right to set out their own curriculums in school districts. This makes much more sense. Now we have employed people, we have employed teachers, we have employed janitors, we have employed people to serve our schools, food and cafeteria workers. We're going to draw all of that from the unemployed people in our communities and build up our communities. We have the ability in our hands to reconstruct not only Detroit, but to reconstruct most of America by following this path of self-determination. It is very different than this other path. People are using your emotions to get you to follow that other path. You must vote. For what? Okay, vote, get Trump out. You must vote. For what else? What other reason? It stops there because they take all of the accrements, all of the benefits, all of the monies and spread it out among their friends and contractors and land developers. That doesn't make sense to us. So we have now the means in our hands to take over the realms of government and be recognized by other people and nations of the world. When I leave here, I'll be talking with other organizations, major organizations who are now confederating because they realize that this is the most reasonable path. It's the most intelligent path. In fact, this path of integration, even Dr. King, he realizes he had gone down that path to the Voting Rights Act, which, by the way, has been gutted, has gone down the path of he realized that, I may be integrating my people into a burning house. And he was correct. And in his last 2 years had become a human rights activist because he understood that there was another path. Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, Martin Delany, all of these nationalists, Marcus Garvey, I'm going to be meeting with their people in their organization. We have the power, people. We are a mighty power. We are the mightiest indigenous tribe in the world. There's 46 million of us. All we need to do is start making sense with our politics. This is a critical juncture. We are so pleased in the inter-American community, as international lawyers, as UN human rights defenders, that now we can set before you an example of Brother Ramsey Yunus and the Detroit, the people, Al Ummah. We can set you that example. So there's no excuse for you not knowing what we are doing. There's no excuse now. As you see us take over the power, as you see us put people into homes, build the schools up, take care of the addicted, and restore them back to the society. Take the juveniles that are in Detroit out of the penitentiaries, out of the prisons, especially for nonviolent offenses. If they're property crimes, especially on the low end, we're going to take, even the adults, we're going to take them out of prisons, put them to work, make them responsible. They will report back to us. We will put a stethoscope on their activity, and we're going to return them to the society as whole men. We're going to give them an opportunity for work despite their convictions, despite their waywardness. We're going to re-educate them and re-enter them. The single mothers who are suffering and that are sleeping in cars with their children, we're going to take them out of those cars and put them into houses and give them rehabilitation grants from the city budget because we have it in our hands. $2 billion. We can set aside $100 million, $200 million easily. Fix up the streets. We are going to put groceries in our neighborhoods, grocery stores in our neighborhoods, find foods in our neighborhoods. We are going to police the streets so there's so that we can reduce the crime. I won't say no crime, but we'll reduce that crime gradually until we get it down to a very low crime rate. This increases the wealth. When you reduce crime, it increases the wealth of the houses. When you increase education, it increases the value of our children, our best asset. It increases housing. We know what we're doing. We have an economic advantage from being self-determining, having the money in our own hands. Nationhood is the greatest economic engine in the entire world. Right now, there's a crisis in the United States because President Trump has used his office of nationalism to obtain private profit wealth. Joe Biden's son, yes, he was involved in that private procuring wealth in Ukraine. Maybe he did it legally. Trump was wrong. However, the example is that nationalism put us in that position. Nationalism will put us in a position to now trade with our brothers in the African Union. This conversation with the African Union is an economic conversation. It's a conversation that would transfer intelligentsia, exchange students as well. But moreover, it's a shea butter conversation. It's a gold conversation. It's an oil conversation. It's an international trade conversation. It's a transfer of technology back and forth with resources conversation. That's what nationalism gives us. It gives us the ability to now stand up with strength and with wealth as other nations of the world, and we are a mighty nation. Confederate, and we go to 12th in the world. Don't confederate, go along with the integrationists, and you'll be in the same predicament that we have been in since we have been allowed to vote as a simple minority. We are no longer that. So there's two paths that is for your consideration. There's the path of self-determination, nation building, becoming a real people. We have people all over the country. I was on a conference call with 30 groups from Chicago yesterday, and we'll be going back to Chicago, my hometown. That the white nationalists said was so impossible to reconfigure and to help that they were going to send in the National Guard and make it a true police state. That is the wrong way. Instead, we're going to send in rehabilitation specialists, reconstruction specialists to make the schools better, We're going to take over the distribution of groceries and wealth. We're going to take over the schools and the institutions of government in our communities. This would increase the wealth. This would reduce the crime. We know exactly what we're doing. I'm an international lawyer, but I am also, in that regard, one of my best areas is human rights development, and as you see, political strategy. This is political strategy. Politics is who gets what. So political strategy is a strategy to determine what is the best strategy for the interest of your people. Self-determination or integration. If you want to be a member of the Democratic Party and don't want to help us, that's fine. We probably can't work with you. That's what you do. That's what you want to be. That's good. Whatever ends come out of that, that's okay. We're going to move toward economic wealth, psychological freedom, so there's no more bowing down to the white man. No more scraping for favors from the white man. Because we have enough power, we have enough economics in our own communities to succeed and to exceed expectations. We're going to exceed expectations in Detroit. We want to exceed expectations in your community. Your community is devastated right now. I know if you live in America and you live in a ghetto, you are living in a racial colony that has been configured by Congress and by your state legislators to deprive you of wealth. This new configuration would allow you to shake those shackles of poverty and exclusion and become your own people and be in control of your own wealth. We urge you to think about this political reality that we have, this tale of two cities, this tale of two approaches. And then you make the best choice that you can possibly make. We urge you to, this is going to be played on YouTube. You'll find that. Those people who don't quite understand me, please direct them to Dr. Mustafa Ansari at YouTube, the YouTube channel. You'll see about 10 webinars like this that explains this step by step. It explains the Confederation, why we confederated. What is a confederation? Are we leaders? No, Ramzu and I both don't want leadership. We are both non-leaders. We don't want it. We want to configure it. We want freedom. We want freedom. And this is one of the reasons why I loved his style so much, because he was this brother, very humble brother, but very firm brother, an understanding of freedom that he learned from the Africans. We can't really learn freedom from each other because we've never felt it. I never felt freedom until I left this country and traveled like Ramzu. I lived in Morocco. I lived in Ghana. Brother Ramzu lived in Zimbabwe. He lived in Venezuela. He traveled to Cuba. We can't grasp, a slave can't grasp. And I'm just telling you the mindset that we have been programmed into is dependency and depending on their outlook of what politics is and what the right way is. This is a programming. You really don't understand freedom until you go outside this country and sit with people who are enjoying freedom. The Africans are enjoying freedom. When you go to Africa, people in the government, all African, the police, all African, the school teachers, all African, the businesses, all African. The atmosphere, totally different than in America. If you venture outside the ghetto, you get your head cracked for what are you doing in a white neighborhood. Even in your own neighborhood, the police have come to a corner, especially with the young people, tell them to leave the corner, to leave this area. The police state. That's oppression. In Africa, you don't feel that. So we have set with the Africans who can teach us freedom. The Africans can teach us freedom. We can teach them technology. We can bring them into the first world with many things, but they can teach us freedom. They can also teach our families how to be families, because the Africans have families. The Africans have a concept of family that has been taken away from us. We can learn family from the Africans. They can learn industrialization, living in a first world of technology, of inventions that we create. But we need to be a whole people. So understanding our Africanness, our familyness, is what we are going to do in our new areas that we take over. We're going to be able to reconfigure our culture from the dysfunction that it is now to a culture that now can exceed to the gifts that it has naturally. We live in a superpower that we have built. We live in a superpower that we have built, and now we are acquiescing to in the right way. The choice is yours. I leave you today with so much excitement, so much anticipation. I want to see the numbers go up from 106,000 to over 1 million, because when we bring this case, and we're waiting on you to give your consent for us to bring this case, we want to exceed to over $100 billion in benefits for you. We want to succeed to special subsidies, just like Native people have in the Americas for you. The Indians have special subsidies. Even the Mexicans, who are a national minority, we're a simple minority, they have the right to preserve their culture. We're going to succeed to those things. We understand that we're on the right track. This is the path to success. We want you to join us. Give us the power. www.adihr.us. That's African Descendant Institute of Human Rights .us, and it's adconfederation.us. Bring your organization, bring your tribe, and we will uplift ourselves together. We will make friends and international trade relations with the African Union. They have a whole list of things that they have. They have gold, they have silver, they have diamonds, they have oil, they have land. We're going to be talking about land settlements with them. Same way in the Afro-Descendant states, in Caribbeans, in South America, they have moringa, they have shea butter, they have bananas, they have oranges, they have fruits, they have lumber, they have minerals. We as a nation can now open those trade relations. That's what these conversations are about. It's about money. It's about materials. That is politics. The rest of it is garbage. Politics is about who gets materials and resources and authority over their people so that the people can live a high quality of life. That's nationalism. Integration is a I don't know what it is, but its result is disastrous. Poverty, exclusions, begging for any crumb that you may get from the white man. There's two paths. Make your choice today. Nationalism, self-determination, being your own tribe, being in a confederation that loves you, or being part of that burning house that is on full 3-alarm alert right now with its own problems of thievery, of corruption over the money, your tax money that you gave them. Give it to yourself and come up in America. The Afro-Descendant Institute of Human Rights loves you. The Afro-Descendant Nation Confederated loves you and wants you. Thank you so much for allowing me to come into your home this morning, this afternoon for some. Please share this video widely. I leave you as I found you, in the greetings of peace, power, and prosperity. Peace to you till next time. Thank you so much for having me.